Welcome back, everyone, to another installment of the Whitetail Apprentice Series. I am your host, Josh Luck, and I am joined by my co-host, Christopher Leppert and Rick Cates. Fellas, how you doing?
Good, you?
Doing
Good.
well.
Jacob is out hunting this evening, so Rick has been kind enough to step in and help fill in the gaps here. So thank you very much, Rick.
You're welcome. I'm sure I'm not going to be quite to the level of Jacob, but you
No
know,
one ever will.
I can disappoint the audience a little bit more.
So on this episode, we're going to talk travel hunting the rut. That is a very applicable topic to this time of the year. Lots of guys are doing it. So we're going to talk a little bit travel hunting the rut and also a little bit about some calling tactics because lots of people have questions about that, especially this time of year. You know, when to do it, how to do it, where to do it. And in order for us to kind of bring this whole discussion kind of full circle, we have brought on our guest, Mr. Jeremy Aron, to help us on these topics. Jeremy, how you doing?
Pretty good. Very good.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Ready to talk hunting.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I just said I love it.
Yeah. These nerd sessions can go a little long, Jeremy, just to fair warn you.
Hey, I can talk hunting all day long. That's what I live for. It's to hunt and talk it.
So I'd like to kind of jump right into things here. I feel like for anyone that follows, you or Daniel in your guys' channel and what you do, I feel like most people would know that you're very successful at, traveling around, hunting different states, hunting the rut, following the rut. So as far as like planning or preparing for such an endeavor, how do you go about doing that? Like, are you looking, are you talking to people, figuring out, when their rut dates are, when doe or when bucks are usually chasing does? How are you e-scouting? So kind of walk us through that process.
Well, I've been doing this for basically 40 years. So I've got a lot of experience, and I've asked that question a bunch of times because I run across somebody out of state. I'm in that area, and they show me a picture of a big deer they killed. Pretty much first thing I asked them, what day of the year you killed it? Just ordered, and then I'd ask them, are they chasing? So I've asked that question a lot. And like I said, I've hunted over, I think, 22, 23 states, chasing them pretty much the rut. Some have some mountain states out west too, but let's just say like right now, I can head out tomorrow and I ain't got to really be back to Thanksgiving. So I can go multiple places. And I'm sitting there and I don't really know where I want to go, but I'm thinking I'm going to go to Arkansas for the rest of this week and then come back this weekend and head y'all's way after that. Because I sort of know the rut's not really going on over there, but with this front coming through, well, I know this is time sensitive here now, so that may mess that up. But I've asked that question a lot. But I say if somebody new that wants to start doing this, man, look at rut reports. Go to DNR Game and Fish. A lot of times they've got rut charts of areas. It's just like Mississippi. If you look at Mississippi, it's got several different ones. It starts over in the northwest part of the state, then it goes down the Delta, and it comes on over. I'm in north central Mississippi, but you're liable to get a month later, 6 weeks later in the south part of the state. So a lot of the south is like that. But I know pretty much what I've hunted, Wisconsin, Indiana, Kentucky, a lot of them are sort of that first major front at the end of October. It just seems like you're going to see a lot of bucks in the mood. They're not really going to be chasing, but they're roaming, looking. That first week of November, it sort of picks up. You can get Kansas. It seems like November the 10th has always been my best date in Kansas. You can get that Iowa and further west. I like closer to the 20th of November. So I've pretty much, since I've hunted over the years, I've sort of know where I can go to catch that chase in the rut. It's just because I've just, like I said, I've done it for a lot of years.
But I want to hit on that resource you were talking about for new hunters using like the DNR websites, because I feel like that is a very overlooked resource
Absolutely.
that people don't really take advantage of. I mean, they have tons of information on there. I know I've picked up stuff from Rick. I know Rick is on the Kentucky DNR all the time looking up stuff. And when I lived there for a little while, I gained a lot of information on there on different WMAs. And some states keep, lots of records of their harvest results, and they're
Mhm.
very up to date on it. And some you can see like many years in the past. So it's a very good resource for someone to utilize, I think.
Well, I had a guy tell me, a lot of times listen to people ask that question. I had a guy say one time that he looked at the highway patrol
Oh.
accident report, deer
Oh.
wrecks. Because
Genius.
think about it, more when the does are, bucks are chasing, way more deer get run over. Man, we can go through Western Kentucky. I don't know what road that is there. In that first week of November, and I guarantee you can't go a half a mile without a deer being run over in about a 10-day period right there. Just deer run over everywhere in there. so that is one thing I pay attention to when I'm traveling is dead deer on the road. If you start seeing a lot of fresh road kills, hey, they're probably up on their feet moving around a good bit.
Yeah, I didn't even.
Genius.
I feel like it's a very obvious thing to look for, but I never really thought of it like that. I'm just driving around like, oh man, there's a lot of deer. Like deer. I mean, I don't travel as much as you would, but a few states. But and I primarily hunt Ohio and Kentucky, and I'll just be like, oh yep, things are starting to heat up. But I never thought in the application of using that to hunt different states. That's a really good way to look at it.
Well, another thing you got to watch, we used to do a lot of traveling at night. Man, you get in some of them states, the rut's really going on, you better watch you have an accident. And you sure don't want to be traveling in the bust front end of radiator and it run a hunt right quick.
Somebody left their standing corn up a little late, and big boy comes flying out of there behind a doe, and bam.
Yep. So but the main thing, what I say is, for somebody new that hadn't done it a whole lot, it's a learning process. The more you do, the more you're going to learn. And always be open-minded. I always want to pick up all the data and info you can, because I think that is sort of our specialty, is chasing a rut, because we know we can go into an area pretty quick, find sign, set up on travel corridors and sign, and we're not trying to kill a particular deer. We're just trying to kill a mature deer. So, we're looking for good buck sign, good community scrapes, close to bedding and stuff, with the right wind and the right fronts. Just like when a major front comes through. We were talking a little bit earlier. Some folks like that day before or the day of the front, and I really like the couple of days after it. A lot of times that barometric pressure come up and that wind, you're pretty much going to have a north wind. I've had better luck on them days. But now Daniel's killed a couple of big deer the day of the front when that wind started, just right when the wind starts shifting around. Because most time in all the parts of the country I've ever been, when a major front comes through, it's going to be out of the north or northwest.
Yep.
And when that wind starts shifting around, he's killed two that you could tell they hadn't, then probably was bedded within 100 yards of it. They got up and just sort of stretched and they come to scrape, and he killed them when the wind just to shift around. So I've never done that. I've been more waiting and like backing off a little bit further from the thickets and catch them roaming the next day or two.
Yep.
So just to touch on that a little bit, why is it that you prefer a couple days after?
Well, I just seem like I've had better luck, and you got a consistent wind, seems like that day or two after. And a lot of times you get that bluebird day, that seems like that barometric pressure comes up. Cause my philosophy on a big deer, he's going to get up and move every day. He may not move 50 yards. He may not move 100 yards. But you get that weather during the rut, and a lot of times when that moon phase falls right, especially if it's in the morning or evening, or that full moon, if you can get them three to line up, especially close to them, that front like that, I'm definitely going to be there. And it just seems like like I said, a lot of times they make us move 50 yards, but seem like it when it's during the rut and it's the right time of year, they let them move a half mile, might move a mile. That gives you a lot better chance of running across this path.
I like it.
Because a lot of times, like I said, we've been to a lot of shows. And I always listen and pay attention when y'all had us the first year, the Mobile Hunters Expo there in Dalton, Georgia. Or I was at Chattanooga first year, and all the different guys was there. All of them got to kill big deer, but it was pretty amazing how everybody had different tactics.
Yeah.
And one thing you can see, a guy that's killed a lot of big deer that don't travel a lot, he's got a pretty good place to hunt pretty close to his house.
Yeah.
And a guy like that's a lot different because he's got time to do a whole lot of scouting in a place.
Yes.
He can go in and kill a deer early season, because he's got time to get the weather just right that evening. Rendell, I listened to him, how he talking about thermals and stuff. And man, it made a lot of sense of how he could wait till that evening, might get a little shower or something, or he could slip in there pretty easy, because he pretty already knew where that buck bed, where the boat was bedded at anyway. And he just slipped right in there within him, just out of sight of him, and crawl right in his bedroom and climb up. You can't hardly travel hunting and do that. You can get lucky every once in a while, but you can't consistently do it.
I agree.
Because you don't know the territory. It's not.
Oh yeah.
And so that's why we can make production, hunt a lot of states, in this baby's 2 or 3 week window, the Midwest, and kill deer, because we've done it. We've consistently done it the last several years.
So that kind of leads me into my next question. So let's say you've done your research, you've looked at the DNR websites, looked at their rut reports, perhaps you looked at State Highway Patrol, looked at their reports as far as accidents related to deer, and you pick your states. Let's just say it's the first week in November, and you're somewhere in the Midwest. So you pick your state, and you talked about those travel corridors and different stuff like that. So are you e-scouting these areas?
I used to do that a lot, but I've hunted enough and I've traveled enough now. I've got a pretty good idea, because that was one of my goals, is go see all 50 states. And I've done that a few years ago. So I've been in every state.
Jeez.
And when I traveled, I really paid attention. That's what my wife, she's like, we just going to a place you want to scout. And I'm like, well, you couldn't see the country too. So, so she got used to that. So that's one thing I encourage some of y'all guys that, hey, get them brownie points in the summertime, is carry your wife places and go see, but pay attention when you own extra stuff when you're traveling and see something look good, or a public area, drop a pin. Because, man, I got pins dropped all over the country. and over time, when you get my age, it accumulates a lot of data.
You weren't kidding. Man, that's genius.
Oh, hey, honey, we're going to go on a family vacation to, this Western state. It's very pretty. You'll enjoy it.
Well, but that's
flowers.
what my wife's done got used to. She'll have her, especially we got internet service. I'll just say, hey, Google, what's an attraction close? Man, we get all kind of good stuff in this rural America that's not mainstream where all the people are. And she loves that. I'm not a trail person.
Very good. So for a new guy, let's say he's traveling around and he's picked a state. What would your recommendation be if he's never been there before, but he wants to get on deer fairly quickly? He would like to be successful. Is it e-scouting? Is it boots on the ground? Combination of both? And what kind of features would you focus on?
Well, that goes back to, I always say, hunt your home turf territory. To say if you're a river bottom guy or if you're a mountain guy, start out hunting terrain. Find similar terrain in that state you want to hunt. Like I said, I've done a lot of e-scouting. Back when I started, it wasn't e-scouting. You just had to get topo maps, national parks and stuff like that. But now you can e-scout and find similar terrain. I like to hunt a lot of water. So if I'm going to a new state I've never been to, first thing I'm looking for is water access with public land. And then I go from there. I may find a spot on the map that looks good. There's my starting point. But I may get there and walk in there and not see nothing else. But I may bump into somebody at the boat ramp and say, hey, there's a good area right over here. I'm always ears open as info. And I do a lot of hunting by myself. And I finally got Daniel in the last couple of years. I said, you're more productive going by yourself. Now, it's not nothing against 2 or 3 guys that like to buddy hunt and have camp. That's the way you grew up hunting. It's fine. But like you're saying, we'll pick a state. I had, several years ago before I really got to retire, I was limited on time like most everybody else is. I had a week or, basically 2 weekends and a week to hunt. Man, I might go to a place, kill a deer first, second day. Well, I was looking for the next state I could go buy a tag because I had the time off. When you're by yourself, you can do that.
Yeah.
Well, you're with a group, it's hard to do that. Like I said, everybody's got their own style of hunting. But I've another thing I've learned by being by yourself or 1 or 2 guys. A lot of guys will give you info with just 1 or 2 people. You sitting there with a whole group, they won't tell you a whole lot. But that's just what I've learned. And especially a lot of times I do a lot of turkey hunting that I'm going deer hunting. I'm scouting for deer in new areas. I do a lot of that. I like the turkey hunt, but nothing like I like the whitetail hunt. So I'm basically, I've done that all last spring, hunted 3 different states that I plan on turkey. I mean, deer hunting this year.
That's genius. You're really efficient. You
Yeah.
really like to kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
I do. Well, like I said, I've been self-employed my whole life, so I've always been production oriented. Oh, that's just how I was wired. So I look at hunting. When I go hunting, I'm gonna give it 100%. Because I look at, I can lay around and sleep at the house. I don't get to do this very often.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've always looked at my hunting like that. I'm finna hit it hard.
How important do you feel like having? You had kind of give a conversation about this at the Mobile Hunters Expo. How important do you feel like for a new hunter it is to start dialing in a system for like being efficient with getting to place or getting a camp set up or planning all that kind of stuff too? Because I feel like while the hunting tactics are extremely important about getting on deer quick when you're at some of these places, making sure that you've got a system at camp and that kind of stuff so you can break out and go early or come home late, a little bit later. How important is that for you?
Well, to me, that makes you more efficient, especially if you're on a budget. You can go a lot cheaper. Is the camping. Like I said, I've got a Subaru now. If you'd have told me 20 years ago I'd be hunting in a car, I'd told you no, I wouldn't. But I went from a truck with a camper on the back to sleeping in the back of the truck to this Subaru that why I like the Subaru is to make gas mileage. And if it's cold, all you gotta do is crank it up and turn the heater wide open. 5 minutes, you're ready to get up and go hunting. You in a camper in the back of that truck, you freeze your tail off because you can't get heat back there to you. And like I said, I've done that. The tent camp is fine if you got a couple people, but the only bad thing about it is breaking it down, setting it up, breaking it down. It goes back to time. Where that Subaru, man, I can crawl out of it. I'm going hunting. And if I get up that morning or if I come in that evening, I want to go to another place 6 hours down the road, I just hop in and take off. When I get there, I crawl in the back and go to sleep. I'm real efficient on my traveling because I look at that saves me time. It saves me time and money.
Are you storing all your gear in some form of organizer, totes, something like that to keep everything pretty organized?
Yes, you got to know it's like you're living in a tiny home. You got to know where everything's at. I know about everything. I keep my cooler on one side. And like I said, I fold my seats down. I keep a lot of my clothes and stuff where the seats are folded down under it. And I keep a lot of stuff on my camera gear and everything in the front seat. So yes, I'm very efficient on how I got where you got everything, because you don't want to unload the whole vehicle to know. And I want to pack my own vehicle. I'm gonna pack my own clothes and everything where I know where my own weapon. Especially, a lot of times I went on multi-state hunts with different weapons. Just like you was talking about, you getting ready for the muzzle loader. I'd bring a muzzle loader, sometimes bring a rifle too with my bow, and I'd keep all that separate. And a lot of times I'd pack my pack for my first hunt. Say my first hunt was a bow hunt somewhere. I had all it already packed. So when I got there, I was ready to go with it. So yes, there's a lot of, because one thing I basically want to tell a lot of younger guys that haven't done this a lot, you can be the best hunter in the world, but if you don't have the time to do it, you're not going to be successful.
Yep.
It takes time. You got to be there at the right time. It's the key to killing mature animals.
I agree. And that, man, I feel like what we just talked about is just as important as any part of the hunt, because when you're able, one thing that I've noticed that I struggle with on out-of-state hunts a lot is trying to find like decent food and stuff like that. I feel like you're better off just packing your own stuff. But the trick, again, like I wanted to eat like I was living in the Taj Mahal or something, going on an elk hunt, and we're running a generator all day to cook potato soup so that I can be happy when we get back in. And now I'm like, give me a peanut butter sandwich or a freeze-dried meal, or, give me something that's going to get me through and give me energy, but at the same rate, you don't, a lot of times when you get in, it's 9 or 10 o'clock at night on those early season hunts. Could be way later than that. Me and Josh, I've helped Josh pack out deer, and we're getting home 2 or 3 in the mornings. Like, man, if you were rolling into a campsite at 1 or 2 a.m., you're not about to try to spend a half hour to an hour cooking dinner.
Yeah. Well, that's why, like I said, I cook a lot of pre-meals. I killed a doe here the other day, and I basically put them at the 2 shoulders in the crock pot. and leave it in there over a day, and it just comes apart. And I'll put that in a Tupperware freezer thing, and I'll freeze it. I love barbecues, so I just make. I probably eat, when I went on this Wyoming trip back here in September, I brought about a 2 pound of that, and I eat every bit of it while I was out there. And a lot of time I get summer sausage. Oh, so you can pre-make meals that you can bring with you, save you money too. Oh, you're talking about dry food. The Malmove Camp Kitchen guy that was at the Mobile
Oh
Hunters.
man,
Absolutely.
That
love that
stuff.
guy.
I've never been a big freeze-dried, dehydrated food before, but that stuff was good.
He makes good stuff. It actually has flavor. It's very
That's right.
difficult. It's all this stuff's so bland.
Yeah, that's right. That's good. Anybody ever tries that? And like I said, I'm a picky eater. I don't like a lot in it. That's what Daniel tried some first. I was going to wait till I got out there before I eat it. But man, I got out there on the mountain. I was like, man, this stuff better than a steak right now. But it was good.
Yeah.
It was light.
Yeah.
And see, and that's something that you could buy in the off season if you want to save money. If you're on a budget, if you basically buy you one a day if you want to, and just if you next year you're going to do on a 7-day hunt or something, just go ahead and buy you 7 months in advance.
Yep.
That's a good meal. Oh,
yeah, I agree. That is one thing that I will say has definitely helped a lot is getting into the freeze-dried meal game, but you really got to taste test them before you trust them, because I always crack up. You can put all those ingredients in a bag, but you can't put like garlic powder and pepper.
Yeah.
Like, come on, man, love me. You don't need to fill me up with salt.
Yeah. But
as far as I wanted to hit on this, because this is something I've struggled with. My Equinox, I got plenty of room to sleep in, and then still have my gear, kind of like you were saying with your Subaru. But man, I have a tough time getting comfortable sleeping in that thing. It's just because I can't fold the seats flat, and it's like cocked up, and I'm 6 foot, and I have to kind of sleep catty corner, so my legs aren't all crunched up. But as far as like sleeping arrangements go, have you found like any sort of cot? Or are you just using like a foam pad to lay on? Any recommendations on like good sleeping bags that don't take up a ton of room?
Well, I've got a 6-inch member foam mattress that I've got in the back of the Subaru. The back seat of it lays down pretty good, so it's up just a little bit, but it's pretty flat. But we went in my wife's traveling for my wife's little Bronco. Now it has got a hump between the seat and the back.
Yeah.
But what we done was put blankets down where that hump was to fill it in where it was level, and it's fine. So you've definitely got to get it comfortable and level, and you always want to pull where your head's a little bit higher than your feet. You can't sleep with your feet higher, and you slide, and your head's trying to slide on you. So a lot of that's a trial and error. But get that right sleep in order. Man, I sleep like a baby in that thing. Even if it's warm, the warmer nights, say 70-degree nights, I've got screens that I can put on my back windows and roll them down to keep the bugs off. It's got a little rechargeable fan that, if you can stir air in there if you have to. So we've got that down, and we've got a little compact shower. If you want to bring a shower with you, because you can take a shower within about 2 gallons of water, and it's heated. So and a lot of this, and like go back to the sleeping bag. I bought a sleeping bag 30 years ago at Cabela's out there. I still got it. I would say buy good quality camping gear if you plan on doing this a lot. It'll last you a lifetime. Sleeping bag, tent, stuff like that. If you're gonna do tent camping, buy good gear, and when you get home, put it up somewhere. Like I said, 'cause that sleeping bag's 30 years old, and zipper on it's as good as it was. That's the main thing. You have trouble with zippers on stuff like that.
Yep.
It's good advice. Chris, I feel like you recently made some investments in better sleeping gear.
Yes. Completely upped my sleeping game. I haven't finished building out my system yet. I'm not as experienced as Jeremy, but I've slept in the back of trucks and slept on the ground and camped out and did a good bit of it. And I know that whatever sleeping pad you have when you're camping, really anywhere, but when you're camping, the sleeping pad is a big deal, whether it's a little blow up mattress or a pad, foam pad, however that works. But I had one. I want to say it was made by a company called Climate, and it took a crap after a couple of years. The seam broke on it. It got a hole, and I wasn't super impressed by that customer service experience either. I told them what happened. It's like, hey, I didn't put a hole in it. The seam popped. Like I sent them pictures, videos, whole nine, and they wouldn't help me out. So I'm like, damn, man. So
I would recommend everybody get a memory foam mattress. One of them that just squishes down.
Yeah.
Because there's, like I said, and it's about a 6-inch.
And that's,
yeah.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, and a lot of times I'll lay a blanket or two down on top of it to get a little bit more cushion. Because like I said, you got to have cushion under you, because if you're not comfortable, you can't sleep.
Yep.
Yeah. And you don't sleep, your hunt's miserable. You're not alert in the stand. You allowed to have one slip by you and you not even know it because you.
Yep. Yeah. I do agree, like in the back of a vehicle or even in like a camping tent in a campground or something. This is more, I guess I should disclose that this is a very backcountry, super ultra lightweight setup that I'm working with. So I learned a little bit about R value in a sleeping mat, and the higher the R value, basically the better it retains heat and keeps you warm. Well, I bought like the best one on the market, and let me tell you what, that sucker made all the difference in the world, and I haven't even upgraded my sleeping bag yet. It's what's the super famous camping company, Rick, that makes the bags and the
Coleman?
No, not Jesus. That's like
I mean, they make everything camping, man.
No, like the mountaineering style. They use like Inuit terms, like the Nanook and all that.
This is gonna bother me.
We'll think of it in a second.
Yeah.
But essentially, they call their mat the Tensor Extreme, and it has an R value of like 8 or 8.5 or something. It's like the highest you could find. And I thought this is probably going to be horse crap, and it is not horse crap. I took that sucker out, and don't get me wrong, I wasn't out there in like 10-degree weather, but normally once you broke into the 30s, I might get like a little chilly, and I want to say it got down to like, I think it was in the high 20s when I slept out there, and I literally, I only had my thermals on. That was it. I didn't have any other extra clothing, thermals and socks. And like Jeremy said, I slept like a baby. Like I was toasty. So it was slick.
Marmot.
Yeah.
Yep. I'm going to preface this for our listeners. When Chris says he's toasty, for those that haven't experienced
sleeping in a room or around Chris.
Yeah. Chris likes to keep the hotel rooms and stuff at like 58, like as low as the thermostat goes. He pushes it all the way down. Rick and I will be sleeping with hoodies and sweats on while Chris is over there just quote unquote toasty. So his toasty's a little different.
Fair point. I got nothing. Fair point.
So
go ahead, Rick.
So Jeremy, like kind of continuing, travel hunting the rut. When you so like you said, you kind of do this whole year thing, like where if you're driving around the country, you're like dropping pins on Onyx or what have you, and you're kind of scouting and doing stuff. Do you lay out like a plan based off of what you think the rut dates are gonna be? And this is kind of I don't know. This is kind of like a hypothetical, but it's not a hypothetical because it happens every year in some states. How much does like EHD alter your plans or things like that? Where sometimes in the Midwest, I know this year like Indiana's got hit with it bad. How much does that like alter like your plans on what your intentions are in hunting and where you typically try to find areas to go?
Well, yeah, EHD is a big thing, but a lot of times you can you can see, especially if you join some of these groups and stuff. I'm on one in Illinois and Iowa and stuff. Illinois and Iowa, both of things got hit hard. All of them has showed up. Yeah, we went to Wisconsin, I don't know, 3 or 4 years ago, and they said, man, they got hit hard the year before. There wasn't hardly no deer there. So I would basically, if you're hunting, that seemed like further north is y'all's area. So we don't have a problem down here. Seemed like you get north that Mason-Dixon line and a little further, you get a lot more EHD. And I had a guy tell me, and it made a lot of sense. It seemed like the years you get a lot of rain in the springtime and it gets dry in the summer is the years they're worse, because there's a lot of water in these potholes and stuff like that, and then they start drying up. This August, September, and then bugs, whatever that causes that. But yes, I do. I do pay a lot of attention to that, because where Daniel's going next week, I asked him. I said, "Hey, you check. You got a contact up there." I said, "Have you talked to him about EHD?" And he said, "Yeah, he didn't really have that much in that area." So yes, we do pay a lot of attention to EHD. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Great question.
Yeah, well, Chris and I have talked to a few guys that early in the year they were planning on hitting Indiana, I believe, around this time, and they altered their plans once more and more reports started coming out from EHD.
What part of the state in Indiana did hit hard? I hadn't really looked into it.
I think the north has gotten hit pretty hard.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Last
Maybe central.
yeah.
The reports in the south might be scattered
Okay.
from what I've heard.
Yeah, I got a buddy that's up the Illinois River, and he went out 2 weekends ago, and he said he found 9.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And the pictures he sent, he said there wasn't a 1.5-year-old buck. It was a couple 2.5-year-old, and the rest of them was 3 and 4-year-old deer. Yeah, that's to me, the DNR need to do more about that than they do with CWD. There's ticky on his CWD, but man, ADHD.
If I'm being honest, I don't think the CWD has anything to do with the deer, with them caring about deer. In my own opinion, I think that's pressure from the cattle people. I think they're worried about their cattle getting it.
Like I said, I don't know. I just know, and that's another thing about traveling. Out of state, different states. CWD, how you got to take care of your head and stuff. You can't have no spinal tissue. So you got to really watch. I've never been going through a checkpoint or anything like that, but they claim, you can't bring anything, especially if you want to mount a deer. You're going to have to keep him out, and you're going to get that brain tissue out somehow or another.
Yep.
That's one reason why we just cut the horns off a lot. It's got a house full of horns anyway, so I'll mount. So I'm not really interested in mounting anymore. But I know a young guy kill a big deer, he better do a little research of what he's going to do with him when he kills it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Do you have a travel like field dressing kit, like anything that you recommend or that you like to use?
No, I've always just skinned them out, and I keep a contractor bag in my pack.
Okay.
I pretty much bone them out in the woods and saw their horns off right there, because what am I going to do with him when I get in? And I know some states, that's why we got on our videos now, we don't show how we work them up, because so many states vary in how you're supposed to do that.
Yeah.
Illinois, we talked to some guys there. You can quarter him up, but he's got to all come out together. Now, basically, what you want me to do with him when I get him out? I can't cross state line with him. So there's still some old laws on the books in several states that you gotta, But that basically, that's what I would say though. If you're going to a new place, sort of read the regulations of what you gotta, how you gotta tag him, how you gotta get him out. But we just like to bone him out in the woods, or keep him out there if you're gonna keep him out. And when you come out, you can get the road with him.
And for those that are not aware, if you learn how, go on YouTube and learn how to cape out a buck. Even if you don't want to keep the deer, you can make a few $100 off of a cape, especially if it's a good cape.
Yeah,
that's a good way to pay for your tag or camping, hotel, whatever. Like if you're on a budget, that's a hell of a way to make up some money, and it's legal.
Okay, a lot of the taxidermists up that way buying the bigger, big neck bucks.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
go buy small ones. I mean, if you've got a grandson or something that killed his first deer, and you didn't find it for 2 days, or coyotes beat you to the punch, you got to have a new cape.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, my 2021 buck I killed in Ohio, found it 3 days later, and it rained, and cape was no good.
Yeah,
So
hair
that
slipped
guy,
on it.
yep, the hair was slipping. So that deer required a new cape. So yeah, I feel like they are looking for capes often.
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
How much did that new cape cost you, Josh?
I don't remember. I know the mount wasn't cheap. I want to say, and because that guy isn't cheap, but I want to say in total, I can't remember. I want to say 675 is popping in my head.
With a new cape?
Yeah,
Oh, that's cheap.
I would say you got a steal there, dude.
I want to say it was 675 or 725. One of those numbers is popping in my head, and I don't remember which one.
Man, I need to be a doctor. We don't look at prices. Huh?
Well, I've used different taxidermists over the years, so I'm sure
Yeah.
I'm mixing up prices.
I feel you.
Rick, did you have a question?
No, I was gonna start kind of going into like specific tactics. So like we've kind of went over like getting to your spot, picking your spot. Like you've done this for a long time, and you bring up something that my dad used to do, which was you went to the Department of Forestry, got like topo maps and that kind of stuff. So while you might have historical data for some of these places, what are the things that you're typically trying to find on a rut hunt where you've got maybe 3 to 4 days to get in and get it done? You mentioned earlier you're not hunting a specific buck, you're trying to hunt a mature buck during that time. What are the things that you're looking for if you're saying like you're in a Midwestern state or around this time of year?
Say if I'm just heading out and I hadn't been to the state, I've e-scouted a little bit and found me an area. A lot of times finding an area, I want to say a little bit about how I do that is a lot of times it's info, is word of mouth. Like I said, I've got in some real good places with folks word of mouth, and sometimes they wouldn't be telling me, but you over here and you put two and two together to get in good areas. But after I find that area, I'm gonna have me a spot I'm gonna start. Like I said, I do a lot of hunting from water. So I've got a boat access I want to put in. I'm gonna go up and down the river there, and I'm gonna get out and put boots on the ground. And I know what I'm looking for because I've done it in this state and I've done it in that state and I've done it in others. I'm looking for that funnel with structure somehow or another with terrain or water. Is what I like to hunt. The river bottoms and stuff. I'm looking for fresh tracks, crossing them ditches and stuff. Big tracks. Big tracks and scrapes. Rub lines. A rub can tell you a lot about a deer's antler. The higher up he hits up on it, the longer his points are. The further back he hits, if there's a sapling behind it, the longer beams he's got. And then a lot of times, if he's twisting off saplings as big as your thumb, he's got enough tine length because he's getting up between them tines and twisting. He's sitting there, especially if he just tearing one all to pieces. He's got some pretty good tine length a lot of time, or got multiple tine lengths. So a 6-point can't do that. He ain't got enough to grip it. And if he's got long eye guards, a lot of times he'll gouge that thing. He'll gouge that. He'll just see, you can see the marks in it, or he'll go up and down on it. So I pay a lot of attention to that. But like I said, we're looking for that right weather, the right moon. And when I find that spot, when I find that bottleneck, and a lot of times we like to really go, even though say we could leave, Daniel say he's going to leave on like a Wednesday. If the weather turns off super hot and the front's not coming through to like the next Monday, we like getting there like a day or two before that front hits. So we got time to put boots on the ground and find that spot. Because we know what the weather's going to be when that weather comes. So we're looking for that good travel corridor. So with a good tree or something, we can get on that right side and go with that. Because like I said, I've killed majority of my big deer that day or two at the front. It's just year after year. That's just when it happens.
I have actually, I was talking to Chris and some other guys about this today, actually, because my cameras have been kind of dead yesterday and today as this front's moving in. I was talking about how historically, I've just seen better movement that 1 to 2 days after the front. And what you were saying earlier, I definitely agree with, is you get a steadier wind. I've never had luck on real overcast days. Once the cloud cover kind of clears up, you'll get the wind, that steady wind out of the north. That barometric pressure will seem to rise. For anyone that might listen to like Terry Drury, he's real big, or Mark Drury, he's real big on that stuff, where you get the pressure rising, and that he'll call it like a high ceiling, right, where you don't have that cloud cover. I've seen better movement during those days. So I definitely think there's something to that.
Oh, you can pay attention. I'm like I said, I'm on several different apps, Kansas and Iowa and Illinois and Ohio and stuff on Facebook. And a lot of times you can tell when a major front, because it's coming from west to east, you can watch them days when them fronts hit, especially right close to the rut, and see folks start posting big deer. You can pay attention and follow that thing across the country. So fronts have got a lot to do. Fronts is probably the key on a rut. I say the moon second to when they're probably going to be moving, but that rut at the right time of the year is a killer. That's where I go back to say, being able to have time to hunt is what makes you a good hunter. Because you've got to be able, and I know a lot of guys are working, they got jobs, they got to take off, 6 months in advance. They got to put their schedule in, and it's hard for them to plan for that. They're off for that 1 week, say the 1st through the 7th of November. They got to take what the weather is.
Yeah.
But I would encourage everybody to really if you want to be able to kill mature deer, if you have a job where you can take off when it's right.
I agree.
Yeah.
So if let's say someone has to take their vacation right this first week in November, because they have to pick it way in advance for whatever reason. So if they're kind of stuck with the weather, and you said the moon is kind of your second factor that you'll look into. So if someone has to pick way in advance and they have no way of predicting the weather, would you recommend them kind of looking at the moon and then kind of basing perhaps the time they're off on that?
Especially if it's just say when's usually the peak of rut in your area? We'll give you a sample. When would you say what day of the November would you rather hunt Ohio?
Peak of the rut or
peak of the rut. Yeah, peak of the rut. Peak of the rut.
Peak of the rut, peak breeding, November. What do you think, Josh? 13 to 15?
I would say 7 through 14.
Yeah, I like 7 to 14 that
Okay.
week.
All right. Say I'll look at the moon, see when we're gonna have a full moon that month. Just say if it's fitting to fall, you say in the 7th to the 14th. Just say the full moon is gonna be like the 5th or 6th. I would really like to hunt that 7th to the 14th. But say if that full moon is fitting to fall the 14th, I would rather hunt later. I like hunting a rut. I like hunting around that full moon. It just seemed like you got, I look at all these moon charts and you see best and, it'd be 4 stars. And then sometimes it'd be 1 star. But I look at that, when you got a full moon, you got a move time, or you got a minor time in the morning, you got a major time in the middle of the day, and you got a minor time in the evening. So you got 3 movements.
Oh, wow.
So you got 3 move times that right around that full moon. You got it on a new moon too, but that don't seem like we see as much activity that new moon. I don't know why, but a full moon, if it falls close to your general rut date, I want to go with it, because I've killed a lot of big deer in the middle of the day, and you don't hardly ever do that except when that moon's full.
That's so it's funny you talk about that, because Chris and I have talked about this over the past couple of years as far as the full moon around the rut. And for anyone, some of what we're saying here is also kind of aligning with what Zach Kaiser and Dakota were talking about. For anyone that's wondering, that is episode 208, Killing Mature Bucks Using the Moon. That's a really good episode. So in that one, Zach Kaiser talks about hunting around the new moon, and him killing his more mature deer around the new moon. But he said he feels like Chris, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is how he put it. He feels that data is more accurate early season, and then as he gets
early season and overfood.
Yeah,
which is a completely different tactic. I was going to bring that up.
Yeah, that's from food to bed. Yeah, he's hunting from food to bed. And but he kill him in the middle of the day on that new moon.
No. He's
No.
killing them in the evening from bed to food, but it's just an early season on feed tactic. It's
Well,
not like you're hunting the rut.
But,
And
okay, well, I would look at, just say if I had my dates that I took off 6 months in advance and it falls a week before the full moon, you can look at when is that major time finna fall, when the moon's straight up or straight down. When is it finna fall, in the morning or the evening? Because I really pay a lot of attention, and it ain't minor time too, because you're gonna get two of them every day. You're gonna get a major and a minor every day, no matter what day of the year it is. But during a full moon and new moon, you've got three a lot of times.
man,
So I pay a lot. I'm not telling you, I spent too much in the woods. I've like in the last 4 years, I've got to basically hunt 4 moon cycles. I've got to hunt 4 months every day, and you really start paying a lot of attention to when deer are going to be moving. It's not 100% exact, but it's way more than 50%. And especially when you put the weather with it, and the rut with it, that's why I say that's my 3 factors. When you get all 3 of them, say you got the November the 7th. You said that was a good day. You got November 7th. You got a full moon that's going to be straight up from 12 to 2. So the morning is going to be good because you're on a minor, and that moon's going to be minor in the evening. So you got 3 times. So I'm going to set that tree all day that day. But you're going to probably see a lot more activity in that middle of the day. I was in Wyoming September on a full moon. I was in a place, I slipped into a place and bulls were bugling. Moon was it was probably about 3 o'clock in the sky when it was daylight that morning. Well, I got up in there, bulls were bugling a little bit, but about the time that moon was setting on a minor time, man, they got screaming in there. There was like 5 of them in a drainage. Well, nobody messing with them. And I was in their mule deer hunt, so I just sat back and listened to them. But the moon was straight on their feet between 1 and 2 o'clock. Them suckers cranked back up at 1 or 2 o'clock during the day. I was like, you can't sit here and say the moon don't affect them neither. Because I sat there with them all day and just sat up on that mountain and just to curious to see what they done. And they did. And that was a peak of the rut for elk. So they was rutting in.
This has me nerding out in my head right now, because what you're saying, Jeremy, is lining up with so many things that we heard from multiple people. So going back to Kaiser real quick, he was using the new moon early season, but he says he doesn't feel like it's that data is or that moon phase is really applicable during the rut. And he had mentioned more so the full moon during that time may have an effect. And then Dakota Cantrell had also talked about the major and minors. That's his big thing. He pays a lot of attention to those. And we've talked to Shane Parker, and I think Shane might have mentioned it in his, I believe he did. If you want to listen to the one we talked with Shane, that is, what episode is that, Rick?
I want to say it's like episode 198, maybe. Let me check for you.
Man, this is like, you got me jacked out of my mind for this weekend.
Episode 194.
194.
He had talked, so it's mastering buck travel patterns using trail cams. So he talked about in his trail camera data, the new moon and the full moon. What you were talking about, Jeremy, you get 2 minors and a major. You get those 3 different times during the day. He was talking about around new moon and full moon. He really likes those times because he sees, the deer activity increase. And I know Chris and I have talked about over the years, I particularly like the first 3 or 4 days after full moon during the rut. And I feel like consistently I have seen late morning movement during that time frame.
Into midday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
And in the mid.
Yeah, the 2021 buck, I plan on sitting late. It was after a full moon. I want to say a couple days after full moon. I was like, well, I usually see late movement, so I'm going to sit here until at least noon. And sure enough, that buck came in at 11:30. That was the first time he had been in there in daylight, and I shot him.
There's a website you can go to. I don't know what it is. I done a show a couple years ago. I walked around in my house here. I think I got, 35 heads in here, or just on plaques and stuff. And I thought I killed it in the morning, evening. I asked the question, go around in your heads you've killed over the years. You kill more in the morning, more in the evening, or midday. And just think about it. I think a lot of it goes back to what was that moon phase. The day you killed that 2021 buck, go back. You know what time of day you killed it. You know the day of the year you killed it.
Mhm.
Go back and look and see what the moon phase was when you killed it. I guarantee it was a minor or a major.
Yeah,
A lot of times on a full moon, you get a full moon and the next morning you wake up, most time it's right over center. A lot of times. So you done missed that major because major is right before daylight. Well, 4, 5, 6 hours later, you got a minor when that moon's setting. You get up in the morning, you see it in the sky about 2 o'clock. When a few hours when it sets, most time that's mid morning. That's perfect. That's that minor time. I read something a couple years ago when I was trying to do some research, find some websites on the moon phase and stuff. And I read an article and it made so much sense. I never thought about it. And I think it's sort of what time of that year that full moon falls of year, say November 7th is peak time. It basically said full moon was seeking stage. Quarter moon after full moon was chasing stage. Full new moon was lockdown. I got thinking, dang, I never thought about it that way. But you always hear lockdown. You always hear, a little bit of reek of the rut. I don't think that's true every year, but I do think when that full moon falls right at that peak of the 7th through the 14th that y'all say is up there, to say if that full moon is, say, that 5th or 6th that year, you're going to see a lot of good activity on the backside of that full moon.
And to be clear, the peak, according to the biologist, the peak of the rut is right around mid-November here. I think they were stating what they like to hunt, which for me, it's really tough to say a favorite because the last few days of October here are fire. If you have intel, if you don't have intel, then you're probably not going to get super lucky. But
I think a deer is like a human. Just think, they waited all year for these does coming.
Right.
And you get, you 2 and 3 year old, and y'all got more age structure than we do. You're getting on it in your 4-year-old. Man, that first cold front, they've done had pecking order. They know who the boss is around there. But they're trying their darndest to find that first hot doe.
Sure.
And I had a guy come in on the show a couple of years ago from Northeast Iowa, and he basically said, them mature bucks know them older dominant does are going to come in first. And they're going to be, if you know where they are, hunt them. And I thought that makes sense too. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I wish I knew all of that. That's kind of tough to keep tabs on, but we need to start tagging does and make them fight each other. Which one of you is tough? I need to know. But no, I agree. It's funny to watch them too, because it's almost like the bigger deer towards the end of October. They just can't take it anymore, and they get on their feet. And you see them during the dumbest time. And Josh and I, we've hunted private enough, had enough corn piles out and stuff. You'd have just the stupidest, midday encounter on camera with your number one, 140, 150, 160 inch deer. It's 2 p.m. and it's 80 degrees. And then go and look at the moon face.
That's right. You go look at the moon face.
The day after the full moon, or the day of the full moon, or, a couple days after, which when I'm muzz hunting, I got a morning sit this weekend and we're just a couple days after the full moon, and I'm beyond excited.
But pay a lot of attention to position though. That rising straight overhead, setting straight underfoot.
Yeah.
And 4 times is where you pay attention, especially when it falls to that 7 to 9 in the morning, or if it's getting dark at 5:30, if it falls from like at 3:30 to 5:30, or that 4 to 6, when it falls them times, especially in the evening, I think like that guy was talking about on new moon, he knew that moon phase was finna fall right in the evening on a feed pattern, so he knew to hunt feed in that evening, early season, because they're going to be up. They're going to daylight them days like that.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
So we've talked about hunting the fronts. We've talked about using the moon to kind of hone in on some dates. As far as you had mentioned scrapes and rub lines and different things like that, do you find yourself earlier in the rut focusing on like scrapes and that? And as you go through, let's say you're getting a little later in the year, do you stop hunting those at a certain point? Because I feel like I've seen, at least around here, once we get like past the first week in November, those scrapes really peter out and they don't get like hardly any attention.
Oh yeah. Where I'd really like to say the last week of October or maybe the third week of October, if you get a rain front comes through and that moon phase falls right in the evening, seem like if that rain will stop about 30 minutes, an hour before dark, them suckers get up, come them scrapes and clean them out. That time of the year, they won't do that in mid-November.
Yeah,
mid-November they're gonna more wind check them scrapes. They just gonna go way behind them and play the wind and just hit them that way. Oh, like I said, I don't really just set up right on the scrape. I'm more on a trail that's going to it, that's got that right feature that I'm giving him most of the wind. When he's coming up through there, he's got most of the wind. You know, I'm trying to catch that little offset or in the curve or something, that bend in the creek or something. He's got to go around it just a little bit. Because most big deer I've ever killed, when they're roaming by themselves, that wind's pretty much in his face or quartering just a little bit. You know, very seldom he's going to turn around and go backwards. Most time he's going to be walking. I think when he gets up out of his bed, he knows which way he's going because of the wind. And I think he knows that a day or two in advance. You know, I've worked outside my whole life in logwood and stuff. I can tell the weather when a front's coming just because you know how the direction of the wind changing a day or two in front.
Yeah.
You know, when our wind gets southeast, here we got a front coming southeast, and the harder that wind blows, the more extreme that temperature change is going to be.
Your fronts come from the east?
Well, no, the day before it comes.
Oh, okay.
That wind will suck out of the Gulf, out of the southeast. You know, because it's sucking coming to it. Yeah, ours always gets southeast, and even a little bit east, a day or two before the front.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I've heard Mark Drury talk about those, the first north directly after a south. So you get that front, and you'll almost have like that 180-degree wind switch, you know, during, you know, over the course of a day. I feel like there's a couple things going on there that I particularly like those days as well. One, usually with the front, you get cooler temps. So I feel like those bucks are wanting to move during those cooler temps. But also, I feel like if, let's say you've had a consistent southerly wind and then all of a sudden you get a big switch, well, they're going to move and switch their bedding, or they're going to have to move to different areas to scent check some doe bedding and stuff. So I feel like it's just a recipe for movement.
Well, see, I've got a place here that I hunt's got a big power line that runs east and west. So anytime you've got a north wind, and like I said, I can see 600 yards one way and I can see 500 yards the other way. So I can see 3/4 of a mile where I'm sitting on a hill. 90% of the deer is going to cross that sucker. If the wind's out of the north, they're going to be coming from the south going north. Just like you said, you can get a wind shift. Like say it's been out of the north for 2 or 3 days and it's still cool, but the wind starts shifting out of the south. You're going to be surprised how all them deer are going to go back from north to south now. I've set hours and hours on it. I've hunted that plane for 25 years. And I know what days I can sit and kill a deer. Ours is basically Christmas to the 10th of December. This is rifle hunting because I can see a long ways. But I learned a lot by sitting on that thing and just watching deer. Because I always said, when the wind gets out of the south, they all get bundled up on the south end of the place. And then when you get that first end of the wind out of the north, they turn around and go back north.
Man, I mean, they live and die by that nose and those eyes. I mean,
Yeah.
They gotta set up to be able to use that nose generally. It's kind of funny watching mule deer bed on a mountainside, facing uphill because the thermals are blasting upward.
Yep.
Like, tell me there's something there telling them to do that.
That's right. They said, I can see this way, but I can smell behind me. So
yep.
Yeah. That's a lot of it. I'd say to somebody young getting started something, pay a lot of attention, want to learn. There's a lot of videos. There's a lot of, if thermals, traveling, there's a podcast like y'all got. the sky's the limit now. If you want to learn, you can learn it. Just put
I
in the
agree.
time.
Yeah.
There's no reason to be a mediocre hunter anymore. No excuse.
No, there's all kinds of information available at everyone's fingertips.
It is.
So I wanna keep with the tactics here. Let's say you're in the spot, right? You got a front coming in. Well, the front came in. It's the day after the front, and you're in an area you're expecting some buck movement to come through. What other tactics do you take advantage of? Are you doing any sort of calling, any sort of rattling, anything like that?
Like I said, growing up in the South, calling didn't really work that much here because we didn't have the age structure. But the more I've hunted the Midwest, yes, when you get around mature deer and that pecking order's there, they know who's dominant. I really think calling does good around bigger deer at the right time of the year. You know, any animal can call, from a coyote to an elk to a deer, because that's their vote, that's them talking. You just got to know the right situation, the right place and time to do it. You can't call every deer, but like we was talking a little bit before we got on here, he's talking about one of you guys on one of the podcasts said about grassy areas, thick, more closer to the bedding areas where they feel more confident. So I do think setting up in the right spot. Now, setting up in a saddle, 15 feet up in a tree, sitting there blowing a call all the time. I've heard guys call in deer, and I have blowed a call, and 5 minutes later, big and show up, and you're like, did he come to the call, or was he just coming through? I don't think it hurts. Especially at the rut, at the peak of the rut. So, and we was talking a little bit earlier. Yeah, I'm going to try getting on the ground a little bit this year, and y'all see here in a month of what I can do with it. But I want to get down. I think it's more natural on the ground.
Yeah,
where you can kick and break limbs. Like I said, I've elk hunted a bunch over the years. Making racket is more natural. It's as natural as the sound is. Especially when you get around elk, because man, that's what kick a rock down the hill. Because man, have you ever heard elk come walking through the woods? It's like a herd of cows. And I think deer. You ever heard deer fighting? Man, they're pushing and breaking limbs. They're not worried about sound. They're getting at it. So I have caught a few deer up on the ground before. And it's really just. I had one of my buddies from Illinois tell me he'd crawl down out of a tree right quick. You have your steps and stuff, rattle, break all kind of limbs, shimmy back up the tree right quick. Because it was more natural down low, especially you was around a thicket where he couldn't just be right on you. Right, you had a thicket out from you a little bit. It may pull him. I didn't do that time or two last year, and I'll probably do it again this year.
What Henry says too.
Y'all one stick guys can't do that though. It is, but
Jacob Emery will. He'll rappel down and
shimmy back
sequence and shimmy back.
Well, you got to do it quick though.
Oh yeah.
You don't want to be going halfway up a tree and there he comes.
Yeah, wouldn't that suck?
Yeah, that was going to be one of my questions. Is how important do you feel like the adding that realism is to it? Because I feel like, especially in some pressured areas, you might get a bunch of guys calling up in trees, but I don't feel like there's too many people that'll shoot down their tree, rattle, break up some limbs, rake some leaves, and then shoot right back up. I feel like that realism can make a difference.
Oh, it will. It will. The only two I've ever rattled in Mississippi, I was on the ground, and like I said, I backed up against an old blowed over tree where he couldn't get behind me, and just got behind it, making all kind of rackets, and they just come sort of skirt me. It was young deer, but yeah, I have called two in Mississippi doing that.
How many? I mean, have you called in a decent amount of big mature deer in the Midwest?
Well, like I said, I've done some sequence, and 5 minutes later he shows up. So I don't really know if he comes yet. I really like climbing. Used to when we climb more with a lock on and stuff. I like climbing with a tree to my side a little bit, a small, just say a 5 or 6 inch tree. I take one horn and just rake it, like do a little grunting and stuff, and then just rake it like one's over there. Just I know if you hunted enough, you've heard one get in a bush and just be tearing it up.
Yep.
I know I've killed two big deer killed in Iowa. Very first one I probably killed in 16. I'd done that. was making a whole kind of racket. And man, I looked up just a little bit in there. He was up there on the scrape, just tearing a tree up. So I was pretty sure he heard that. I think it all goes back. You've got to have that right deer in the right spot, and
Yeah.
the right temperature. You know,
Sure.
demeanor. But you don't know till you try it.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really good point where you talking about you were on the ground and you backed up to where the deer couldn't come from behind you. I feel like those pinch points or funnels where you can put something on the backside of you to where they can't get downwind of you, I think is a really good place to try that tactic. And then I feel like in combination of Chris was mentioning, those tall grass areas where they have like a visual obstruction, so they have to come seek it out.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like where you have some topography changes, maybe some small hills or real thick areas where they can't really see. I've never had great luck with calling, but the couple times I feel like it may have worked is there was a visual obstruction and the deer had to come, somewhat close by in order to investigate. I feel like those are really good things to keep in mind.
That's what I say. If anybody turkey hunts, they understand how a lot of times you got to put structure to make that turkey come get his curiosity where he's got to come to. And I think you got to do the same thing with deer. Like I said, you can't be in a wide open bottom hardwood. You can see 200 yards.
Yeah.
He gonna step in one end of it and just look around there. If he don't see nothing, he's like,
Yep.
Where's you at?
And think about what we all know drives a gobbler crazy, scratching the leaves.
That's right. Scratch the leaves.
I mean, and then you look at elk hunters raking trees.
That's
and
right.
like you said, kicking the rocks. Like, I feel like that realism, and Josh really hit on this, and I've never really thought of it in this way, but most people don't, which is why I tend to shy away from calling, because everyone's out there. I mean, I've hit horns together thousands of times, and I've called in a couple of mature deer, but I never had like a strategy beyond that. So I feel like adding that realism and all that and having a plan is.
Yeah, because I look at it like if I know the area and there's several hunters in the area, I'm not big on calling either, because I don't want to call nobody in. But a lot of times I get in places I'm pretty sure nobody else is around. And a lot of times I may wait middle of the day or something a little bit. Or a lot of times I do, like when it starts breaking light, it's really do a little bit of calling. But the guys I've really talked to that's killed a lot of mature deer doing that, man, they say 10 or 15 minutes. Just be consistent. You never know when a deer is just roaming. And I had one of my buddies from Illinois told me it made a lot of sense. He said, if you see one go walking by, he said, don't call to him when you see him. He said, let him get out of sight. He said, let him get out of sight and then call. And he'll think, man, I didn't see that one. He wants to turn around. Instead of you being able to see him when you call, he turns around and looks and he don't see nothing. I thought, man, that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. But we're all so guilty. We want to see what his reaction is. We want to grunt while we see him. But I think if you just wait, let him get on out of sight, and then really get loud where he hears it, and see what kind of results you get.
That's a good point. That visual barrier, it all comes back to that, right? Don't let him see you. Stop letting him see you.
They have to come check it out.
That's right. That's right.
And if they can't get downwind of you, I feel like it's going to work even better, because a lot of times people say that they don't like to blind call because deer will just circle downwind. Well, if they've got a barrier back there and they can't, right, that's going to make it very difficult for the deer to do that.
Yep.
Going back to something you just said, did you say being consistent with a call every 10 to 15 minutes?
That's what, yes, them guys said they just do it about every 15 minutes, just all during the day. Because think about it, if a deer's downrange of you, that you've got structure, he can't see you. If he just come roaming through, say he just comes roaming right over the little ridge there a little bit from you, and you're sitting there grunting, he hears it, he'll have to come that way and check it out. And, like I said, it may be 2 hours before another one comes through, or for one comes through. That a lot of them guys said it's not hurting anything, but he's got to be able to hear it. So
yeah,
and a lot of that's the right time of the year, the right day, when you got that constant wind. You're pretty sure bucks are on their feet. It's one of them days that mature deer are on their feet. Now I may call in the evening or something. I slip into place and climb, and there's a thicket out there that I'm pretty sure that could be one bedded in, and I got a good wind that he's got to come to me to see, get to my area. I call then.
Okay.
What would you say your perfect calling scenario would be as far as time of year, time of day, like conditions?
Well, like you said, that day or two after the front, and you're at that middle of November, y'all speak of the rut, especially maybe a day or two before that, just seem like you get more roaming activity right before that first doe comes in. They're just bucks on their feet everywhere, especially when you start seeing a lot of 2.5-year-old bucks, maybe 3.5-year-old bucks, y'all. It's just that day that man, deer are out roaming, looking. They're not going from bedding to feeding. They're up looking.
Yep.
They're on their feet traveling. That's when we really like to hunt, is catch that day there, because that's the day you got a lot better chance of catching him going that mile instead of that 100 yards that day.
That makes sense. I'm gonna take a drink here real quick. Rick, did you have a question?
No, I'm just thinking. I'm thinking about what Jeremy
You
said.
had made a noise, and I was like, I don't know if Rick has a question.
No, I'm just thinking about like kind of the calling sequencing in the middle of the rut, or when peak rut's going on, and what that tends to look like. Obviously noise is best, and you want to have that little bit of wind. That way, sight lines are broken up, and those things. I'm just thinking more about what you said with letting the deer go by and then calling. It makes the most sense in the world. And I was just sitting there thinking, like, I wonder why people don't think more to do that. And is it just the anticipation of the deer being right in front of them, and they want to that exchange taking place? But it makes a lot more tactical decision to wait for them to go by, then crack antlers, or then make a grunt call, and then have the deer come back, because they already have that impediment of not being able to see, and they're so damn curious anyways during the middle of the rut, or ramped up, or whatever you want to say, that they're willing to come back into an area even if they don't even if they literally just left.
Yeah.
Well, think about a deer. A lot of times when a deer comes walking up through there and he smells you, which way does he go? Right back the way he come.
Yep.
Yeah.
So he's already come from that way, and he's not scared of danger. So I think when you make that call, he's like, dang, where was that net? So I feel like that comfort zone, he'll come back that way because he just come from there. So it wasn't like you spooked him or anything. So like I said, when he told me that, I'm like, man, that makes a lot of sense. But it's so, it's like a turkey out in the field. You won't call to him because you can see. You want to see his reaction. You want to grunt and make sure that he turns his head, that he heard it, instead of him just going walking by and you grunt and the wind may blow enough, the sound don't get to him. But I like you said, I think too with the horns, let him get past you, rake that tree or crack them horns something real loud that he's going to hear it. I think curiosity will get him to come back. And it's not like he's going to try circling around you. He's probably just going to come right back the way he come and look.
Interesting.
That's a good point.
The wheels turning, Chris.
Yeah, I got so many things turning. I'll probably forget it all before we even get to this weekend. But I mean, I also have a gun, so it's not like if I see the deer where I'm at, I'm shooting. So it's not like bow hunting where you got to get them close and play that silly game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I know Chris is excited for these conversations because he's not real big on the rut, and we've been having a lot of rut talk lately. And now wheels are turning. It's like, oh, I could do this. I could do this.
It's like a whole new way of learning, and that doesn't mean I haven't like killed deer in the rut and all that. It's never been like, for me, it's been more of a crapshoot. I haven't had that great of a strategy, other than try to figure out where the does are and be there. But I've also had the crap luck of hunting private where big deer don't want to be. So there's a lot of discouragement, I guess, where I sat for years of my life not seeing anything. I'm like, I've got does. There are no big bucks here. But yeah, it's been really cool to get into all this rut tactic talk, because here I am with my tags still, and we're approaching the rut. So kind of excited to take some of this and put it into practice and maybe prove a bunch of people right.
Yep.
One strategy I've got that relates to a lot of this is my setup and how long I stay. I know it's probably a lot of people say a lot about that, but unless I've just found a sure enough good travel corridor that I know a lot of different deer is going to come through there, I will set it as long as I got a wind several days. But I really like going into a place. I really like going in midday, scout, find a place, hang my stuff up. If I don't see anything, leave it up, come back next morning.
Yeah.
Repeat that. Repeat. I may not move far, but I may move a little bit one way or the other. Because it seemed like that first or second set's when you kill that big deer.
Yep.
It seemed like if you stay there very long, unless it's just in a good travel corridor that a lot of deer are coming through, and you're back off of it with a good wind. Now I will set them, but just seem like you're setting up in a creek crossing or something like that, or a good trail around the side of a hill. A lot of times I set it that evening, in the morning, and I get out there and go to another one.
That's a good strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And give it a couple sets and then move. I've heard a lot of people, I guess not like a lot, but I feel like the tendency is, especially if on like small parcel private, because I used to do this when I was younger, is just sit in a spot over and over and over and just waiting. So I feel like someone new that might be traveling, that's a really good thing to keep in mind is a couple sets. If you're not seeing anything, move on, right? Because the action may very well be just on the other side of a ridge or something, and you're missing it.
Yep.
Well, one thing I say too on the traveling, it seems like you'll get just days there's nothing going on. You just like, man, I can't. I'm not having any luck. It's not nuts. And then it's like, bam, you shoot him and there he is. You're like, dadgum. It just happens to spur of the moment. So the one thing I would say when you're traveling like that, keep giving it 100%. Don't give up, because it'll happen when you least expect it most time.
Yeah. Stay hydrated, stay, well nourished and rested and all that. And
yeah, like I said, just stay focused, and because man, it just, you'll get grinding and grinding, we call it, and then you think, man, I just can't get in the groove. I can't get in the groove. And then all of a sudden, boom, there it is. So I look at it like playing poker and stuff like that. It's got highs and lows, just like a ball game. It's got a momentum, and you got to flow with it, and you got to make your own luck, and you got to get, I look at you got to cross paths with him. You got to get where we talked a little bit earlier, where I want to start getting on the ground a little bit, how I used to hunt when I grew up, how I was raised hunting. Just take the hunt to them. I really want to try doing a little bit of that this year, instead of crawling up in a tree and you sitting there waiting on him to make the play to come to you.
I like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is a good what am I thinking of here? Analogy. Thank you. I had every other word. Reference, parable, metaphor, you name it. But when I was in Colorado with my buddy Matt, I told him, I said, all right, check it out. We're probably not going to just show up here and find all these deer. Like, that's probably not how it's going to play out. We're probably going to have to suck it up. And if we find them before opening day, we're going to be really lucky. And then we found them the evening before opening day. It took 2 days of looking around everywhere, and finally we it was where the people were not. Go figure. Like, literally everybody else was like, oh, you gotta be high, you gotta be 70,000 feet in the air, and we went down to like 6,500 feet, and there's a bunch of big mule deer bucks and elk and everything. We're like, okay, I'm not listening to anybody ever again.
Well, that's why I say you just find them pockets, and just think of mature deer, especially if he's hunting, private land a little different, but you hunt public land. If he's got a little age on him, he's figured out some niche to stay alive.
Yep.
So he's got a safe area somewhere, and most time that rut, we call it chasing rut, is I call it a 10-day window. That's, you're gonna get him out of his comfort zone. That girl's gonna get him out of his comfort zone, and you got a chance to kill him. To me, I call it a 10-day window that you've got a lot better chance of killing him. I ain't saying you can't kill him in September or October over a feed tree with the right moon, the right evening, but you got a lot better chance of killing him that 10-day window there.
Yeah, you can catch him making a mistake. He's going to make more mistakes, and I think, and you feel free to tell me I'm wrong, but I feel like everybody thinks that those deer just get up and roam around and like walk around like an idiot. And I think they're still pretty calculated. It's just that they make mistakes now. And then when they get on one of those does that's close or hot, then to me, that's
Well, yeah, that
that's
is,
when he's
but like
walking.
I said, but if he makes one mistake, he's gone. He's never there
Right.
again. So,
Right.
so like I said, if he's got, and there's a lot of difference between a 3 and a 4-year-old deer and a 5 and 6-year-old deer. And see,
Oh,
we
sure.
don't get to hunt very many of them in the South because we don't have that age structure.
Yeah.
We just go, we can shoot too many deer down here. We got too long a hunting season. But y'all's hunting is a lot different, because you can, if you can find that sanctuary that deer has figured out how to make it for 5, 6 years. He's going to keep doing the same thing because he's survived there.
Right.
And a lot of times you just get lucky and stumble into it. And first set, you caught him off guard and got lucky.
Yeah.
That's what I look at guys that's killed a lot of big deer. I basically say, if they're killing them in one area, you've got a super good area to hunt. Most folks in the country don't have that.
Yeah.
You may kill one every once in a while, a good deer in your area, but you're not going to consistently kill big deer unless you got a good place to hunt.
Yeah.
Okay, it goes back to, I don't care how good a hunter you are. If he's not out there, you can't kill him.
Yeah. Very true.
I agree.
Well, that goes back to something that Dan Infold had said, is like lots of properties look like they're good for deer and they're not. Or like lots of areas can look like they're real good for deer and they're not. There just might not be a big deer there. There might not be a mature deer there. There might be deer there. And, that honestly, I think plays a lot of role to people's rut tactics too. Are you looking for a deer? Or are you looking for a mature deer? And that's going to play a large role in what you're going to do in each of these situations as well.
Well, and another question I've been asked a lot is, what size deer do you shoot when I go to an area? I've gone to a state and I've never hunted. Do I shoot a 130 when I know there's 150s and 60s there? The old saying is, don't pass up something the first day, you shoot the last day.
Yes.
So have that. I say have that mindset. Here's my mindset. If he's got a mature neck on, if his body, when he comes up through here and his body, when I see it, he looks mature, I'm finna shoot him. I don't care if he's got a 120-inch set of horns on him.
Mm-hmm.
Because like I told Daniel when he killed that big deer last year, I said, that big deer will be the first one down the trail you hunt enough. And it will.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of guys that really has got a piece of property that they're managed and they've got their hit list of what deer, they hunt different because they know what's there. And a lot of times it's a controlled environment. But public land's all game. All 4 of us sitting right here can go have the same opportunity to hunt that same deer.
Yep.
So I look at them a lot different. That's why we say we're hunting a mature deer, not a particular deer. And you hunt enough good areas that's got mature deer in it, you're going to kill big deer.
Yeah. Got to find them.
Yeah. And like I said, a older deer is just a little different. He acts different. He moves different. I had 3 girls coming up. We played a lot of fast pitch softball. Loved to coach. I love to coach softball about like I did deer hunting. And we got playing against a lot of these kids, D1 kids that's 10, 12 years old. If you've never seen a D1 picture at 12 years old, that's going to be a D1 picture in college, you can't hit it because you never seen it before. They're going to blow that ball right by you. But now you start out when you're 6 years old playing with kids that caliber, you're going to learn how to play with them. So hunting mature deer, see, we're from the South. I've killed a 140 here in Mississippi with a rifle. Now, this was a rifle. I've never seen a pope young out of a tree in Mississippi.
Wow.
That's why we go y'all's way. Because one reason it's rifle season. That I'm not going to bow hunt when everybody else is running dogs here, and everybody else is rifle hunting.
Yeah.
Even though I got some of my own property around here that I can manage and do it, but there'll be a pack of dogs come running through, and you sitting there with a bow, and he runs across the property line, and somebody shoots him with a rifle. So we just don't. That's one thing I really like, how I've traveled and met other people. I was out when I went on that Wyoming hunt. I stopped back by. I got a buddy in Utah, and he said they shoot bows long ways, 150, 160 yards.
Wow.
They practice like that. Kill animals that far. Very
Holy
consistent.
crap.
We don't even think about that. I like, man, our stuff won't even be still. They won't even be where you're shooting at. But one of them killed an antelope this year at 150 something. Southern killed an elk at 96 yards, double lunged them. But that's how they
Holy crap.
practice.
Was
So,
this Tim
so
Gilligan
that's one thing.
going?
That's one. I'm not encouraging nobody to shoot like that. But if they practice like that all the time, that's why a lot of times when I bow hunt, I always practice 60, 70, 80 yards in the yard here. So if I get a 30, 40 yard shot, it's chip shot.
Yeah.
Daniel, man, 100 yards, he can put 3 arrows in a 4-inch group with a broadhead on. But now you got to know your deer. You can't, just because you can hit that spot, a whitetail, especially further south you get, he's not going to be there if he hears it.
Oh yeah.
So you can't shoot him that far here.
Yeah.
But there's a lot, that's why I like travel in different parts of the country and see different styles of hunting. Like some parts of the country, they make drives and stuff. I'm not saying I like it or don't like it. I just like to learn how little areas have got their own little niche, how they hunt.
Oh yeah. The old party hunters in Iowa.
Yeah.
I remember the first video clip I saw, that dude dropped like $3. Just boom, boom, boom. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to prison for life. Started reading the comments. I was like, where the hell can somebody do that? And then everybody's like, oh, party hunt, party hunt. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Party hunt? Well,
long
you
as
go to
enough
jail for that
tags.
in Ohio.
But like I said, that's what I just like learning from other people. You may pick up a tactic that somebody's using somewhere else that you're like, hey, I might use that here. That's just like y'all's Mobile Hunters Expo. Man, I love going to them things, and the clientele is there. They're all like us. We're all think the same.
Yeah.
We like to hunt and sort of hunt that way. May not be exactly the same, but you sort of may learn a little bit from this one and a little bit from that and over there.
That's what's been probably the biggest blessing with that show, is that not only have we got to learn a ton from all of you guys, but getting to understand the perspective of a guy from a Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana versus, Pennsylvania, Maine, Michigan. It really, like, I'll say I'm guilty myself. People, hold up their 100 or 110-inch deer, and I'm like, oh, you should have passed that. Well, I'm in, name a state in the South, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't matter. Deer get big everywhere. It's like, well, no. Not exactly how it works. Some of them will, but not all of them will. And it always cracks me up, because the deer down where you guys are specifically are just so everything is so different down there because of how warm it is and all the browse, and just everything's different. And then you get, you talk about like the age structure and everything. It is literally a different world down there.
Well, in our long ones, our gun season opens Saturday before Thanksgiving.
9-month gun season.
And runs the end of January.
Yeah.
So it's basically 10 weeks. And
Oh my goodness.
And we used to kill up to $5. So a couple years ago, they cut us back to 3.
How many deer can you kill?
I think you can shoot 5 does and $3 now. I'm not 100% sure. But see, that's the difference. That's the difference between a southern guy and a northern guy. Where a lot of y'all states, you can just kill one buck if they don't get out of their state. You can take a 40-year-old guy that might have killed $25. Man, you can take a guy in the South that's 35 years old to kill more than that.
Yeah.
And a lot of that's just experience of taking animals.
Yeah.
But like I said, y'all kill way bigger because you got way bigger deer.
Sure.
But now our 3-year-old deer, a lot be as smart as y'all's 5-year-old deer, because there's, if he gets seen, somebody gonna shoot at him. If he's, where I grew up around here, he could be in a field in August with a set of horns. Some redneck shoot him. It's not as bad now as it was 10, 15 years ago, but it's, if he was out in the open, he got shot at.
Yeah. Don't come around us and have a big wreck, man. We had that dude. I won't mention his name because he doesn't deserve it, but he got guilty to like 14 counts on that mega giant here. What was that? Like a 220-inch deer?
Yep.
Yeah, it was a world record class deer.
And like I said, that gives all hunters a bad name, but it's getting a lot better in the South. It's definitely getting better.
Kind of speaking along the lines of that gun pressure, how quickly will you adapt to pressure in an area? Let's say you're getting later in the year and starting to follow the rut in some of those southern states. Like if you just see an area that's getting, just pounded with people or gun pressure, like how quickly do you move on?
Well, our country down here is so thick. You could take a mature buck, know he's in a 40-acre cutover, and have pictures of it, and he'll never daylight. You'll never see him. I'm saying, so we've got areas that they can stay and make it till they fool around, make a mistake. But with us being able to run dogs here too, though, that stirs deer around. That ruins our mood pattern. A lot of times in these dog areas, they get more moving right before dark, because most time dog hunters won't turn out after 3 o'clock a lot of times. But one thing I learned hunting public land, I learned to pattern hunters just as much as I do deer, because a mature deer I promise you, he's done patterned. If he's made it to be 3 or 4 or 5 years old, he's learned how somebody walks into an area. He learns where the crowds are and how they go in and when they come out. That's why I really like hunting. I hunt a lot all day. So when I travel, I'm there to hunt. If I've got a pretty good area, I probably do 25, 30 all day sets a year over the season. And a lot of times you'll have to kill one somebody bumps that comes sort of slipping by you. So that is another thing. And I don't get frustrated if somebody comes walking up a trail. A lot of times I just sort of hide behind a tree where he won't see me, where you go on instead of not talk to him. Some folks get so mad when somebody comes walking in there on them. And there's a lot of times I've seen guys walk by, and just a little bit, here come a deer coming, the way they come, slipping back behind them, slipping back. So that's one thing I say, just don't get frustrated if somebody comes walking through there. You think maybe hour after daylight, somebody comes bopping through, and you're like, dadgum, he's ruined my morning. And a lot of times, just stay there. Just sit back, stay there if you're in a good spot.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
And I also wanted to hit on, you talked about those all-day sits. And then earlier we had mentioned, if you're in a new spot, give it an evening, give it a morning, and then move on if you're not seeing anything. So when do you determine, when do you start doing those all-day sits? Is that just a certain time frame in an area?
Well, it's like I said, I know my rut area is from October to end of January. So if I'm in an area and I know it's that 10-day window, I think that he's going to be moving, that he's in that seeking mode, really traveling. Like I'm talking about, I want to go to Arkansas here. It's after Thanksgiving over there. But if I go over and hunt like now, I'm going to hunt feed. I'm looking for feed trees. I'm the Jonathan Moreland style of hunting here now. I'm looking for that. So my all-day sets is when it's pretty much a peak of the rut with that good weather, good consistent wind blowing all day. Good cold weather.
Yeah.
You got that good cold weather that they've got to feed to and could be roaming. If I'm just in that good bottleneck, if I'm in that good travel corridor that I know there's probably, if I've got a camera on a community scrape and there's 5 or 6 different bucks that's come through it in the last week, I'll set it.
Makes sense.
And another thing I like to do is run a lot of cameras, especially in the States. I've got cameras in 5 states right now. And I'm just sort of sitting back watching them. And it's amazing how you get activity and it just falls off.
Yep.
You'll get a little sporadic activity. I'm talking about mature deer. You'll get 1 or 2 pop up. I know it was 3 states. There was one day it was in September, and it was 9 days after the full moon. Well, I knew it because I went back and looked. 3 states that morning had mature deer within a 30-minute time frame. I'm like, man, what was that day? What was so special about that day? And I went back and looked. It's 9 days after the full moon, and it was a cool front that morning. And the minor time was from 6 to 7:30. And there was 3 different shooters that come through that day. That's what you're trying to figure out is that day.
Yeah.
Some folks call red moon, stuff like that's the day to kill them. But, that's another thing I say is keep data, y'all. I've done that for years, and I've got data on places. I've sort of quit doing it because I've got enough that I know when the rut is. But I used to keep up a log if somebody killed a big deer. I'd put the moon phase, the weather, and the day. and I'd write that down. It didn't matter if I killed it. If somebody else killed it, sure enough, good deer, I'd write that down. And like I said, I've got multiple states. I've done that for years. So I sort of know when them good dates are.
All information can be good information.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah.
I like to leave a lot of soaker cams on different places to gather that intel. And most of the time it's trying to gather historical data on, when does the activity pick up in that specific location. Like there's a spot, place in Ohio last year, a lot of that buck activity really picked up around like October 31st. From the 31st until like November 10th, there was lots of buck movement in this area. So I'm kind of anticipating that again this year in this area, because nothing's really changed. I'm expecting a similar scenario.
Well, and a lot of times pay attention to them days that you got that. What wind direction did they come by that camera? Pay attention, because there's a lot of certain times they'll come into an area with a certain wind. That's another data to just keep up with. And a lot of times you'll be surprised. I got a buddy in Indiana that's got an old white oak crepe. Seemed like, I don't know if one come in this year or not, October the 15th. It's about the first time he called it a white oak scrape. It's about the first time every year a mature deer will come to that scrape. In the last 3 years, they've done that. And I'm like, you need to pay attention to that. Keep up with data like that just sort of like we're playing roulette. And I always play red and black. And when you get red, black, and then it goes red, you can play that percentage a pretty good odd when they're really bad. Same way with data. When stuff starts really consistently lining up, hey, jump on it.
Yeah, it's all an odds game out in the woods, trying to stack the odds in your favor.
That's right.
Chris and Rick, are there any other specific topics you would like to hit on?
Man, I honestly think we knocked it out of the park here. We finally had a podcast where Josh got to talk mostly. Normally it's me and Splitter and we don't shut up. So I figured I'd let Josh kind of have his own series, at least for a night. But I feel like we did fairly well. I'm trying to think of anything else that we might not have covered. I mean, this is kind of a stupid question that is more of a backcountry thing, but do you carry any kind of like water filter or anything with you at all, or anything to?
Not in the Midwest or nothing, but yeah, I do when I hunt the mountain states.
Yeah.
Because I usually keep a cooler with bottled water in it.
Do you use any energy supplements at all?
I do drink a V8 or that pomegranate blueberry. I like them, but no, not really. Now out west, if you're doing a lot of walking, doing a lot of strenuous, yes, I really encourage to keep some kind of supplements, because you've got to keep your body hydrated. If you're a lot of time you're sitting in a tree all day, you don't need much food or nothing, anything. You don't need much water. You got to pee a bunch. So,
before we got off here, I did want to leave the listeners with something to take away. So Jeremy, if you could kind of paint a picture for the listeners. So let's say let's pick your perfect scenario, time of year. You don't have to say state, but let's say time of year, conditions, location for when you're travel hunting the rut. What does that perfect day look like to you?
Well, so when a major front is a double-digit temperature change, and from the highs, say the high today was 70. If the high tomorrow is 50, that's a major front change. You basically had a low pressure come through there, and then on the backside, it's going to be on the high pressure side. I really like that. Like we've talked a good bit on this podcast about 2 days after it, up to 2 days, even 3 days after it. That's my perfect scenario. If I've got that right spot that I'm giving him 80% of the wind, I'm right in a crook or something there that wind is skirting right by his trail. That's where I like to be. I just that you got to give that big deer. You can't sit there with the wind blowing in your face and it's blowing up his tail. He's not coming in that way very many times. That goes back to playing percentages. It's not going to happen. But if you get it to where when he's walking, you got to get it to where it's quartering in his face, and you're right far enough out of that trail that it's blowing right down side of you. So that, and then play the thermals. I really learned a lot from that Chattanooga show 2 years ago about guys talking about thermal that I'd never even thought about it in a flat bottom. Now, if you're out in the mountains, it's pretty common that sun comes up, it starts rising, sun goes down, it sets. But they got think about in a flat bottom, it's still going to go downhill, even if it's just 2 foot in elevation, if there's not any wind.
Yep.
But if you get that 10 mile an hour, I really like that when you get to that 8 to 10, 11, 12 mile an hour wind, because that trumps everything, and all you got to do is play that consistent wind.
Yep.
And I think that buck, when he gets up that day, he knows that, hey, it's going to be consistent. I can just sort of skirt and stay in that. And to me, that's a perfect scenario.
I like it. Is this? I'll throw another scenario out there. Would this be a funnel on the downwind side of a doe bedding area, or just a funnel between bedding areas?
Well, a lot of times where I'm hunting, there's multiple bedding areas. It's not just a specific CRP field or something on one end. It is according if you do have that distinguished one. A lot of times these river bottom stuff you're hunting it could be a few trees that got blown over by the wind or something. Sunlight hitting the ground, there's a thick spot there. I like hunting places with multiple areas like that where it's not just a distinct bedding area, where they feel sort of confident coming through. So.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
I dig it.
You're certainly giving me a lot to think about. I mean, I go on a deer camp with my dad every year, which is it's a rut hunt every single year. We try to time it around the rut, and definitely giving me a lot of stuff to think about for this upcoming year. So I appreciate you sitting down with us tonight and going through all this stuff, because it's been kind of eye opening, and it's awesome to hear. So thank you again for coming on.
Oh, it's fun, and like I said, I love passing down what I know. If it'll help one person, it would worth it.
That's right. Well, this has been the Whitetail Apprentice Series. I have been your host, Josh Sluck, and I was joined by my co-host, Christopher Leppert and Rick Cates. And our guest on this episode was the great Jeremy Aron. Jeremy, thank you again for joining us. This has been very informative.
I enjoyed it. Good talking to y'all, and good luck to y'all this year.
Appreciate it. You too, man.